Sometimes the person who pulls away from you is not losing feelings. They are losing control over feelings they never expected to feel this deeply. And while you are sitting there wondering if they ever cared, they are somewhere trying to calm a storm inside them that only exists because of you. This is the part no one talks about. When love and fear live in the same place, the connection doesn't disappear. It becomes complicated. They come close, then step back. They open up, then shut down. Not because you mean nothing, but because you might mean too much. And if you don't understand this pattern, you will mistake protection for rejection and distance for indifference, when in reality, something real is quietly fighting to exist beneath it all. When someone starts to pull away from you, especially right when things begin to feel meaningful, your first thought is usually simple: they must not care. It feels like distance equals lack of love. But what if that distance is not the absence of feeling at all? What if it is actually a sign that something real has been triggered inside them, something they do not fully understand or know how to handle yet? Sometimes the person who steps back is not avoiding you. They are trying to manage what is happening within themselves. Their emotions start to deepen, and instead of moving closer, they feel overwhelmed. So they retreat, not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much in a way that feels unfamiliar or even unsafe to them. If this resonates with something you have experienced before, then stay with this idea for a moment, because it can completely change how you interpret their behavior. It helps you see the difference between someone who truly does not care and someone who is struggling with feelings they cannot easily express. When an avoidant begins to develop real feelings, it does not usually look intense or dramatic. It is not loud or obvious. Instead, it shows up in a quieter way through a form of consistency that is easy to miss. Not perfect consistency, not constant attention, but a deeper pattern that continues even when they pull back. This is where many people get confused, because they are used to associating love with passion and strong, visible emotion. But for someone who fears closeness, intensity is actually easy in short moments. They can create powerful connection for a brief time, say the right words, and make you feel deeply wanted. But that alone does not prove anything lasting. What truly matters is what happens after those moments. Do they completely disappear, or do they return in some way even after creating distance? Real feeling shows itself in that return. It is not about never pulling away. It is about not staying gone. There is a rhythm to it, a pattern where they step back, but eventually come back into your space again. Maybe not loudly, maybe not consistently in the way you expect, but enough to show that you are still present in their mind and emotional world. This behavior is not random. It reflects a deeper internal conflict. A part of them wants connection, while another part fears it. If there were no real feelings, they would simply detach and move on without looking back. There would be no effort, no tension, no return. But when they continue to circle back to you, even in small, quiet ways, it shows that something deeper is holding their attention. They may not express love in a clear or fluent way, but they reveal it through this repeated movement of leaving and returning. It may not feel satisfying because it does not match the traditional image of love, but this kind of steady presence beneath distance often speaks more truth than intense moments that disappear just as quickly. When an avoidant creates space, it is easy to assume they are slowly removing you from their life. But there is an important difference between someone who distances to disconnect and someone who distances to regulate themselves. An avoidant who feels something real does not completely cut you off. Instead, they step back just enough to regain control over emotions that feel overwhelming when intimacy grows. This space is not usually meant to hurt you, and often it is not even a conscious choice. It is an automatic response shaped by their fear of losing independence or becoming too emotionally exposed. As their feelings deepen, an internal alarm starts to activate, telling them that closeness equals risk. So they create distance not because they want to lose you, but because they are trying not to lose themselves in the process. This is where things often get misunderstood. The distance feels like rejection, but in reality, it is a form of emotional self-protection. What matters most is what happens during that space. If their feelings are not real, the distance will turn into silence, indifference, and eventually complete disappearance. But if the feeling is genuine, the connection does not fully break. Even while distant, they find small ways to stay present. They may check in, reply occasionally, or maintain a subtle thread of contact that never fully disappears. There is something invisible holding the connection together, no matter how much space they create. This shows that they are not running away from you entirely. They are trying to manage the intensity of what they feel. Their presence may become quieter, less predictable, and harder to read, but it does not completely vanish. And in that ongoing connection, even if it is limited, you begin to see the difference between someone who is escaping you and someone who is struggling to stay while protecting themselves at the same time. When an avoidant starts to feel something real, vulnerability does not show up in obvious ways. There are no big confessions or dramatic emotional displays. Instead, it appears in small, almost unnoticeable moments. It shows up in pauses during conversations when they almost say more than they intended. It appears when they reveal a small piece of themselves and then quickly pull back right after. This pattern of opening and retreating is not random. It is exposure followed by protection. They might share parts of their past or personal thoughts in indirect ways, almost like they are testing whether it is safe to be seen and understood. You may notice subtle changes in their tone, a softness where there used to be distance, or a kind of curiosity that stays longer than usual. They remember small details about you, things that seem unimportant but actually reveal that they are paying close attention in a way they normally would not. Even their hesitation carries meaning. There are moments where they seem like they want to move closer but stop themselves halfway, as if something inside them is holding them back. That hesitation matters because someone who feels nothing does not hesitate at all. Indifference moves cleanly without resistance. What you are seeing in those moments is not lack of emotion, but emotion held right at the edge before it becomes too overwhelming for them to handle. In those brief openings, their defenses lower just enough to reveal a deeper emotional side that they rarely allow anyone to see. These small fragments are not accidents. They are signs that something real is growing beneath their fear, even if their patterns still cause them to pull away again. When an avoidant begins to respect your boundaries instead of reacting against them, it reveals something important. It shows that they are starting to see you as your own person, not something they need to control, manage, or test for safety. For someone who struggles with closeness, boundaries can feel confusing. They may see them as rejection or as pressure, but when their feelings are genuine, their perception begins to change. Your boundaries start to feel safe instead of threatening. In the beginning, they might react unpredictably to limits. They may withdraw, become distant, or test how much you will tolerate. But over time, if the feeling is real, this behavior shifts. Instead of pushing against your boundaries, they begin to adjust themselves around them. This change is subtle. They might pause before asking too much from you or accept your no without turning it into conflict. What is really changing is how they interpret your independence. It no longer feels like something that takes away from them. This is important because it shows they are starting to manage their fears internally instead of projecting them onto you. Someone who does not care will either ignore your boundaries completely or walk away without concern. But an avoidant who feels something genuine begins to understand that closeness does not require control. They start to experience connection in a new way, one where they can move toward you without feeling like they are losing themselves. This process is not perfect and it is not fast, but it is meaningful. Respecting your boundaries does not mean they are fully comfortable or healed. It means your presence has reached a place inside them where it no longer triggers the urge to escape. Instead, it creates reflection, and within that reflection, something rare begins to form a connection that allows space without losing closeness, trust without needing control, and a bond that grows quietly even between moments of distance. When an avoidant pulls back emotionally, it does not automatically mean the connection is over. More often, it is their way of calming themselves when things start to feel too intense inside. What really shows whether the feeling is real is not the withdrawal itself, but what happens afterward. If the emotions are not genuine, that distance slowly turns into something final. It becomes silence detachment and a gradual fading where they no longer feel the need to come back at all. But when there is real attachment, the pattern looks different. The distance is usually temporary, and at some point they reconnect even if it is quiet, delayed, or hard to notice. This back and forth can be confusing because it creates mixed signals. But inside that pattern, there is something important to understand. When they return, it means the connection was never fully shut off within them. Even when they step away, something about you remains active in their awareness. They may create space to settle their emotions, but they do not completely erase the bond. It is more like they pause it, holding the intensity at a distance until they feel able to handle it again. What stands out most is how they come back. It is rarely dramatic or emotional in an obvious way. Instead, it shows up in small, simple actions: a message without explanation, a casual check-in, or them appearing again as if nothing really changed. These quiet returns reveal something deeper. There is an inner pull they cannot fully ignore. If there was no real feeling, there would be no reason to return at all. This is why that cycle matters. It shows that the withdrawal is not rejection, but regulation. Their mind is trying to manage the closeness, while their emotional connection to you continues underneath. Over time, this repeated movement of stepping away and coming back becomes one of the clearest signs that something meaningful is still there, even if it does not look stable or easy to understand on the surface. When an avoidant slowly starts letting you into their inner world, it does not happen in loud or obvious ways. It is quiet, gradual, and easy to miss. If you are expecting clear emotional openness, their inner world is something they protect carefully because it holds their most private thoughts and feelings. Letting someone see it is not casual for them. It happens slowly and often without them even realizing it as they begin to feel a sense of safety. You might notice it in small changes. They start sharing thoughts they usually keep to themselves, or express opinions that reveal deeper parts of who they are instead of staying on the surface. They may begin to talk about past experiences, fears, or personal moments they once avoided. Even in everyday conversations, you can sense a shift not just in what they say, but in how they think and process things. Another sign is how they begin to place you in their mental space. You may notice that you show up in their thoughts about the future or in the way they talk about plans, even if they do it indirectly. They may not openly build a long-term vision, but their words begin to include you in subtle ways, showing that you exist somewhere in how they see their life unfolding. This does not happen quickly because it requires them to lower defenses that are usually always active. Their natural tendency is to stay separate, not to emotionally blend with someone else. So when they begin to include you in their internal dialogue, it means your presence has moved beyond something temporary. You are no longer just an outside connection. You are becoming part of how they think and feel internally. This process can be inconsistent and fragile, but it is meaningful. It shows they are not just interacting with you on the surface anymore, they are carrying you with them, even during moments of distance or silence. When an avoidant feels something real, their words will not always tell you the full story. In fact, what they say can often feel limited or incomplete because expressing emotions directly can feel too exposing for them. That is why their actions become more important than anything they say. Their behavior often shows what they are not comfortable putting into words. You begin to see it in patterns. They may not openly say they care, but they show it through effort. They come back after pulling away. They respond even when it would be easier to stay silent. They keep some form of connection instead of disappearing completely. These actions are not random. They are signs that something inside them is still tied to you. Another important detail is the way they pay attention. Even when they seem distant, they remember small things about you, things they do not have to remember. They notice changes in your mood, recall things you said a long time ago, and respond in ways that show quiet awareness. This kind of attention is not driven by obligation. It reflects a deeper level of engagement that continues even when they are not expressive on the surface. Effort is especially meaningful here because for someone who struggles with closeness, effort requires pushing through internal resistance. If there were no feelings, there would be no reason to come back after distance or to stay connected when it feels uncomfortable. But when something real exists, their behavior continues to move around that connection, even if it is not consistent. Over time, you may notice that what they do does not always match what they say or do not say, and in that difference, the truth becomes clearer. Their actions keep pointing back to you even when their words stay quiet or guarded. When an avoidant experiences real love, one of the most important things to understand is that love and fear are not separate inside them, they exist together. They do not feel love as something simple or steady. Instead, when closeness grows, it brings both desire and fear at the same time. This is why their behavior can feel confusing. The same connection that pulls them closer can also make them step away. On one side, they feel drawn to you. They feel comfort, curiosity, and emotional connection. On the other side, that same closeness can trigger fear of losing control, becoming dependent, or feeling too exposed. So they live in a constant inner tension where one part of them wants to move closer while another part tries to protect them. This is not casual confusion. It is a deep internal struggle that shapes how they act. Because of this, their way of loving is rarely steady or predictable. They do not move only forward or only backward. Instead, they move in a rhythm. They come closer when it feels safe enough and step back when it becomes too intense. What looks like inconsistency is actually the result of these two forces working at the same time. The key thing to understand is that fear does not cancel out love. Here it exists alongside it. If there were no real feelings, your presence would not create this kind of inner conflict. Indifference does not cause tension, but when both love and fear are present, the person feels divided between wanting connection and needing protection. That is why the connection can feel strong yet unstable at the same time. Over time, you start to see this inner struggle reflected in their behavior through hesitation, distance, return, and closeness, repeating again and again. And within that pattern, what you are witnessing is not the absence of love, but love trying to exist inside someone who is also trying to keep themselves emotionally safe in ways they are still learning to understand and manage. There is another layer to this that often goes unnoticed because it does not look like love in the way most people expect. When someone with avoidant patterns begins to feel deeply, their nervous system does not register it as something purely positive. Instead, it reads intensity as something that needs to be controlled. So even when they enjoy being close to you, part of them is already preparing for distance. This is why you can feel warmth from them one moment and a shift the next without any clear reason. Internally, they are trying to stay balanced, not realizing how confusing that feels on the outside. What makes this even more complex is that they often do not fully understand their own reactions. They may tell themselves they just need space or that something feels off, but the deeper truth is that closeness is activating old patterns that were formed long before you. So their behavior is not always a reflection of how they see you, but of how they learned to protect themselves in the past. When you understand this, you begin to see that their distance is less personal than it feels, even though it still affects you in a real way. Another important detail is timing. Avoidants often process emotions slowly. What you feel and express in the moment, they might only understand much later when they are alone and have space to think. This delay can create a disconnect where it seems like they do not care or are unaffected, but in reality, they are just not able to process and respond in real time. When they come back after distance, it is often because they have finally caught up with what they were feeling earlier. You may also notice that they become more present in indirect ways rather than direct emotional expression. They might not say something deeply vulnerable, but they will do things that show consideration. They might check in at unexpected times, remember something important to you, or show up in moments when you need support without making a big statement about it. This is their way of staying connected while still protecting themselves from feeling too exposed. There is also a pattern where they test emotional safety without openly admitting it, not in a manipulative way, but in a protective one. They may pull back to see if you will react with pressure or understanding. They may stay quiet to see if the connection can exist without constant reassurance. What they are really trying to figure out is whether closeness with you will feel safe or overwhelming in the long run. At the same time, their fear of losing independence plays a strong role. For them, connection can sometimes feel like losing control over their own emotional state. So even when they care deeply, they need to feel that they still have space to exist as themselves. If they sense pressure, even unintentionally, it can trigger withdrawal. But if they feel accepted without being pushed, they slowly begin to relax that fear. It is also worth noticing how they handle conflict. Someone who does not care will avoid difficult conversations entirely or disappear when things get uncomfortable. But an avoidant who feels something real may still struggle, yet they do not fully abandon the situation. They might take space, go quiet, or delay the conversation, but there is often a return where they try in their own way to address what happened. That return matters more than perfect communication. Another subtle sign is emotional memory. Even if they seem distant, they carry impressions of interactions with you longer than they show. A moment that felt small to you may stay with them and shape how they think about you later. This is why their behavior can sometimes shift after time has passed, as if something settled inside them that they could not process earlier. There is also a quiet form of attachment that develops where they may not express dependency, but their actions begin to revolve around your presence in small ways. You might notice they adjust their schedule, consider your preferences, or make space for you in decisions without openly discussing it. These changes are easy to overlook, but they reflect internal movement toward connection. At the same time, it is important to stay grounded in reality. Not every avoidant behavior means love is present. Sometimes distance is simply distance. The key difference is in the pattern over time. Real connection leaves a trace. It shows up in returns, effort, attention, and a gradual shift in how they relate to you. Without those things, distance is not a sign of hidden feeling, it is just absence. There is also a limit to how much you can interpret or carry for them. Understanding their behavior can bring clarity, but it should not lead you to ignore your own needs. A connection that only exists in potential or in small moments without growth can become draining. Real love, even in an avoidant, slowly moves toward more stability, not endless confusion. What often happens over time is that if they feel safe enough and the connection remains steady without pressure, they begin to stretch beyond their usual patterns. The distance becomes shorter, the returns become more consistent, and their comfort with closeness slowly increases. It is not a fast transformation, but it is a visible one if the feeling is genuine. And in those moments where they choose to stay a little longer, open up a little more, or come back a little sooner, you start to see something shift. Not perfection, not complete emotional clarity, but progress. A movement from fear toward connection, even if it happens in small steps. At its core, this dynamic is not about chasing someone who pulls away. It is about recognizing the difference between someone who is unable to connect and someone who is learning how to. One leaves you feeling empty over time, while the other, despite the challenges, slowly builds something real beneath the surface. If you pay attention to patterns instead of moments, to actions instead of just words, and to consistency beneath inconsistency, you begin to see the truth more clearly. And that clarity helps you decide not just what they feel, but whether what they offer aligns with what you truly need in the long run. At the end of all this, the real truth becomes simple but not always easy to accept. Distance from an avoidant does not automatically mean lack of love, but it also is not something you should blindly romanticize. What matters is the pattern beneath the behavior. Real feeling shows itself through return, effort, quiet attention, and a connection that never fully disappears, even when space is created. Their way of loving may look different, slower, and more guarded, shaped by fear and the need to protect themselves. They may not express everything in words, but their actions reveal whether something meaningful is truly there. When love is real, they do not vanish completely. They come back, they stay in small ways, and over time, they begin to move closer, even if it happens gradually. At the same time, understanding this dynamic should not come at the cost of your own emotional needs. Love that is real will not keep you in constant confusion forever. It will show progress, even if it is slow. It will begin to feel more stable, not endlessly uncertain. So the key is not just asking whether they love you, but whether their way of loving is growing, consistent in its own rhythm, and able to meet you somewhere in the middle. Because true connection is not just about feeling something deep. It is about building something real that both people can actually live in, not just try to understand. If this made you see things differently, make sure to like, subscribe to Avoidant Patterns, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what most people never understand about love and behavior. And if this message resonated with you, comment the word return below so I know you felt it too.